For 4 years, they had been building a relationship, and he was ready to take the next step and propose. But after just a month and a half of silence from her, he was met with this crushing revelation. The woman he dreamed of marrying was now someone else's wife. Ivanka apologized in her message, but the pain didn't stop there. A little later. Hey there, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into another shocking real-life story from around the world. This time, we're heading to Pleven, a town in Bulgaria, where a heartbreaking yet intriguing tale unfolds. It's the story of a man who was deeply in love and in a long-term relationship with the woman of his dreams, only to have everything crumble when she married someone else. But here's the twist. Hope makes an unexpected return a year later, and the story takes some surprising turns as new characters come into play. There's a lot to unpack here, so sit back and take your time because this one's worth it. Let's get into it. Before we jump into the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Now, let's get started. So here's the story. There was a man named Sergiu, born in 1987. He grew up in the town of Pleven, Bulgaria, as the only child in his family. His father, Kostin, was a retired soldier who had served in Afghanistan during his younger days, while his mother, Georgita, worked as a health consultant and even served as an assistant to the First Lady back in 1999. Sergiu's family had close ties with Georgita's younger brother, Dimitar, who lived nearby. Dimitar was a widower with a daughter, Desislava. Unfortunately, in 2010, Dimitar passed away due to an illness, leaving Desislava, then 20 years old, without her father. To support her, Georgita invited Desislava to live with their family. Sergiu and Desislava, as cousins, grew up close. Sergiu's parents would often joke about setting them up, and while Desislava seemed open to the idea, Sergiu always laughed it off, treating her more like a sister than anything else. Legally, as biological cousins, they could marry, but Sergiu didn't seem interested. Fast forward to 2014. At 27, Sergiu, who was working in financial services, decided to pursue a master's degree at a university in Pleven. That's when he met Ivanka, a woman 1 year older than him. They clicked instantly and started dating. Now, here's a bit about Ivanka. She's from Shumen, a town a few hours away. Her father owns a successful plantation and diamond business, with branches in multiple cities. When Ivanka moved to Pleven for her master's degree, her father even bought her a house so she wouldn't have to rent. Apart from her studies, she worked at a bank in Pleven, making her financially independent and secure. Sergiu was proud to be with her, and when he introduced her to his parents, they were thrilled. Both Sergiu and Ivanka graduated in late 2016, and Sergiu began working at a private bank in Pleven. Their relationship seemed perfect, but there was one odd thing. Ivanka's parents in Shumen didn't seem to know about Sergiu. Sergiu often encouraged Ivanka to introduce him to her family, but she always had an excuse to avoid it. After much persuasion, Ivanka finally agreed to a video call with her parents, where she introduced Sergiu. Her parents appeared to like him, but something still felt off. Ivanka avoided bringing Sergiu to Shumen, leaving him with the sense that she might be hiding something, or someone. And that's where the story starts to unravel. On December 30th, 2017, Ivanka left for Shumen to celebrate New Year's. But after that, she completely vanished from Sergiu's life. Her phone was inactive for nearly a month, and no matter how hard Sergiu tried to reach her, even traveling to Shumen to look for her, she was nowhere to be found. Then, on January 21st, 2018, Sergiu received a message that changed everything. Ivanka sent him an SMS, casually dropping the news that she had married another man just a week earlier, on January 13th. The text shattered Sergiu's heart. After 4 years of being together and planning to propose, the woman he loved had married someone else after weeks of silence. Ivanka apologized in her message, but things got worse when she sent Sergiu photos of her wedding reception through Facebook. The images only deepened his pain. It took months for Sergiu to recover, and even then, his parents and his cousin Desislava were the only ones who kept him going. They reminded him to stay hopeful, trusting that better days were ahead. But a year later, Sergiu still couldn't let Ivanka go. Occasionally, he would stop by her house in Pleven, only to find it empty. Unable to resist, he checked her Facebook profile and saw pictures of Ivanka with her new husband, Nikola. As Sergiu later discovered, Nikola was a young businessman in the gold trade and had been Ivanka's childhood friend since elementary school. Seeing their happy moments together made Sergiu's heart ache even more. His parents gently suggested he consider Desislava, who, though she joked about it, always seemed ready to welcome Sergiu with open arms. Yet, Sergiu wasn't ready for that either. Then came another twist in the story. On July 9, 2019, Nikola hosted a family gathering with some of his office employees. Around 8 p.m., he went for a walk alone near the river. That's when tragedy struck. Nikola was attacked in the dark by unknown assailants. Some of his employees reported hearing gunshots and went searching for him, only to find him lifeless, with a fatal bullet wound to his chest. He died instantly, at just 33 years old. The news devastated Ivanka. Losing her husband, especially when they had no children, was like being struck by lightning. Adding to the pain, the police were unable to find the perpetrators. There were no witnesses, no surveillance cameras, and no evidence left behind. The case remained open, but no progress was ever made. After her husband's tragic death, and with the case still unsolved, Ivanka decided to leave Shumen. It wasn't to reunite with Sergiu, but because Shumen held too many bittersweet memories of her late husband. Her parents also urged her to move, fearing the perpetrators might target her next. So, in September 2019, Ivanka packed up and returned to Pleven. She went back to her old job at the bank and moved into the large house her father had bought for her years ago, which had been sitting empty. Being back in the same city and working in a similar field, it wasn't long before Sergiu and Ivanka crossed paths again. They started chatting through SMS and eventually met up at a restaurant. During their conversation, Ivanka opened up about everything. Her husband's death, the heartbreak she endured, and even her decision to leave Sergiu without explanation. She explained that during her New Year's trip back home in 2017, her father had arranged her marriage to Nikola, and she felt pressured to go along with it. Sergiu, after hearing her side of the story, found her reasoning understandable. Nikola, after all, was also a businessman in the jewelry trade, just like her father. With the air cleared, Sergiu forgave Ivanka, and their romance reignited. This time, Ivanka didn't hold back. She introduced Sergiu to her parents in Shumen, and to his surprise, they gave their blessing for the two to marry. On December 16, 2019, Sergiu and Ivanka finally tied the knot in Pleven, starting a new chapter in their lives together. After the wedding reception, Sergiu and Ivanka settled into Ivanka's spacious house. She even hired assistants, gardeners, and drivers to help manage the property, which made Sergiu feel quite proud. Wanting to share their new life, Sergiu asked Ivanka if his parents and cousin could move in since the house had plenty of extra rooms. Ivanka agreed, and in February 2020, Sergiu's family moved into what felt like a small palace. At first, everything seemed fine. Kostin and Georgita, Sergiu's parents, were well educated and financially comfortable, but soon their behavior took an unexpected turn. They began making constant requests of Ivanka, asking for a car, jewelry, and even an extravagant trip to France. It felt a bit tacky, as if they were trying to live the life of the new rich. Yet, Ivanka always granted their wishes without complaint. Meanwhile, Georgita retired and chose to stay home full-time, but her version of relaxing was to boss the house staff around all day. Not to be left out, Sergiu's cousin Desislava started making demands as well. Despite already working as a supermarket manager, Desislava asked Ivanka for a car, new clothes, and even a luxury vacation to Hawaii with 4 friends. Sergiu defended his cousin, telling Ivanka, "Just go along with it. Poor Desislava is an orphan. Making others happy is a blessing for us." Reluctantly, Ivanka continued to fulfill every request, even though it was starting to wear on her. Over time, Ivanka grew increasingly frustrated with her in-laws' behavior. She confided in her close friend Yana, who advised her to consider divorcing Sergiu if things didn't change. Ivanka didn't feel ready to take that step, fearing it might stress her aging father, but the tension was growing. She began protesting to Sergiu, asking if they could separate their living arrangements from his family. However, Sergiu dismissed her concerns, insisting, "I want to be close to them in their old age." The situation became unbearable for Ivanka. She started avoiding home altogether, spending nights in hotels to escape the constant stress. Sergiu, oblivious to how bad things had gotten, didn't question her absences or make any real effort to address the problem. By August 2020, Ivanka had reached her limit. She gave Sergiu an ultimatum. If his parents and cousin didn't leave, she would. This shocked Sergiu, as Ivanka had always been known for her gentle demeanor. But this time, she was firm. Left with no choice, Sergiu finally confronted his family. On August 9, 2020, his parents and cousin moved out and returned to their own home. Once they were gone, Ivanka's life improved dramatically. Her relationship with Sergiu became romantic again, and the financial burden of supporting his family eased. Still, the peace was occasionally interrupted by phone calls from Georgita, who would complain about Ivanka and accuse her of being a stingy daughter-in-law. Despite these occasional frustrations, Ivanka was finally able to breathe easier, and her marriage found its footing once again. On September 1, 2020, authorities received a grim report from residents near a bridge on the outskirts of Pleven. A woman's lifeless body had been discovered, and after an investigation, it was identified as Ivanka. The autopsy revealed a horrifying truth. She had been shot 3 times in the neck and head. The area had no surveillance cameras or witnesses, making it difficult for the police to identify a suspect. Sergiu, her husband, was devastated and completely blindsided. He had no idea why Ivanka would have been in that area alone. Phone records showed no suspicious calls, only contact with her workplace and Sergiu himself. Just a week later, on the morning of September 7, 2020, tragedy struck again. The police received a frantic call from Desislava, claiming robbers had broken into their home and shot her uncle and aunt, Kostin and Georgita. The couple was found dead in their bedroom, each with 3 gunshot wounds to the chest. Their room had been ransacked, jewelry was missing, and their safe had been emptied. Initially, suspicion fell on Desislava. Investigators noted there were no signs of forced entry, no broken doors, or damaged locks. However, Desislava's alibi checked out. She had spent the night at a friend's house and only returned in the morning. With no solid evidence against her, the police cleared her as a suspect. At the crime scene, investigators found a significant clue: large shoe prints in Kostin and Georgita's room. The prints suggested the culprit was a man. During their investigation, police also discovered DNA and fingerprints belonging to Sergiu in the room. However, this wasn't necessarily incriminating. After all, Sergiu was their only son and frequently visited his parents' home. Still, the police couldn't ignore other troubling evidence. Cell phone records placed Sergiu's phone at his parents' home on the night of the murders. Sergiu claimed he had left his phone there days earlier, but detectives weren't convinced. They found inconsistencies in his story, especially when they discovered that his phone signal had been active in a different location just hours before the incident. What's more, further investigation revealed a chilling connection to Ivanka's death. Sergiu's phone records showed that it had been near the river on the night Ivanka was killed. Surveillance footage confirmed that Sergiu's car was seen driving toward the river and returning 2 hours later. With mounting evidence tying him to both crimes, the authorities arrested Sergiu as the prime suspect in the murders of his wife and parents. The revelations shocked everyone who knew him, as Sergiu had always been seen as a loving son and a devoted husband. But the evidence painted a much darker picture, leaving the community in disbelief. As the investigation unfolded, Ivanka's best friend, Yana, came forward to share what she knew. She told the police about the struggles Ivanka had confided in her, how her in-laws were greedy, how Desislava often acted strangely, how Sergiu had become obsessed with power and money, and even how Ivanka had grown suspicious that Sergiu might want to harm her. Yana supported her testimony with dozens of text messages from Ivanka, where she vented her fears and frustrations. Ivanka had told Yana about overhearing Sergiu making mysterious late-night calls that lasted for hours. She had eavesdropped on some of them and caught fragments of conversations about money, insect repellent, weapons, inheritance, and even divorce. These cryptic talks left Ivanka terrified in the days leading up to her death. She had reached out to Yana, hoping for help. Yana was convinced that Sergiu was behind everything. The evidence gathered by the police was enough to take Sergiu to court. Despite his repeated denials, the mounting pressure and the threat of severe punishment finally broke him. Sergiu confessed and revealed that his cousin Desislava was also involved. He claimed that Desislava had been the one to pull the trigger on Nikola, Ivanka's first husband. When confronted, Desislava denied everything. But when the police brought her face to face with Sergiu, the two turned on each other, throwing accusations back and forth, each trying to shift the blame. Their bitter exchange left the authorities convinced that both deserved to face trial. So, what really happened? According to police investigations and their confessions, everything began with Sergiu's heartbreak after Ivanka left him to marry Nikola. The first few months were unbearable for Sergiu, and during this vulnerable time, Desislava stepped in, offering him support and comfort. Sergiu appreciated her kindness but couldn't bring himself to love her. Desislava, however, fell hard for Sergiu and eventually confessed her feelings. Seeing an opportunity, Sergiu manipulated the situation. He told Desislava that if she wanted to be with him, she would have to kill Nikola. Although hesitant, Desislava eventually agreed. A few weeks later, she traveled to Shumen, found Nikola, and executed him. After the murder, Desislava returned to Pleven, and she and Sergiu began dating in secret. But Sergiu insisted they keep their relationship hidden from his parents, which confused Desislava. Then, Ivanka came back into Sergiu's life. She returned to Pleven, and Sergiu married her, seemingly moving on. But things took a dark turn during their wedding reception. Ivanka's father revealed that she had been in a long-term relationship with Nikola since high school and had never truly broken up with him. This meant that during her 4 years with Sergiu, she had been maintaining a long-distance relationship with Nikola, treating Sergiu as a backup boyfriend. The revelation enraged Sergiu. He realized that Ivanka had married Nikola during her New Year trip in early 2018, not because her father arranged it, but because she had always been in love with Nikola. Sergiu felt humiliated and betrayed, and his resentment toward Ivanka began to grow. Determined to make her life miserable, Sergiu invited his parents and Desislava to move into Ivanka's house, knowing it would upset her. Meanwhile, he secretly continued his affair with Desislava, all while plotting his revenge against the woman who had deceived him. Desislava eventually reached her breaking point. After Ivanka kicked Sergiu's family out of her house, Desislava took matters into her own hands. She demanded that Sergiu kill his wife, or she would expose him as the mastermind behind Nikola's murder. Terrified of being caught, Sergiu gave in to her demands. Fueled by resentment over how Ivanka had used him during their relationship, Sergiu lured her to a secluded spot near the river on the outskirts of town and carried out the execution. Sergiu had also hoped that with Ivanka gone, he would inherit the house they had lived in. However, much to his dismay, the property was entirely in Ivanka's name, and he was left with nothing. Desislava, ever manipulative, then demanded that Sergiu marry her. But she harbored her own grudges, particularly against Sergiu's mother, Georgita. Desislava despised her aunt, who had often belittled her. Georgita had dismissed Desislava as wasteful, incapable of earning money, and criticized her appearance. Worse, she had only pretended to support the idea of Desislava and Sergiu being together, as she preferred Sergiu to marry a wealthier woman. Desislava now pressured Sergiu further, insisting he eliminate his mother as well, or she would report his involvement in Ivanka's murder to the police. After much internal struggle, Sergiu gave in again. Late one night, he entered Georgita's room and killed her while she slept. But things quickly spiraled out of control. Sergiu's father, Kostin, caught him in the act, and in a panic, Sergiu attacked and killed him too. The case came to trial in early 2021 at the Pleven City Regional Court. Investigators had uncovered a damning trail of evidence. The weapon used in all 4 murders, Nikola, Ivanka, Georgita, and Kostin, was traced back to Kostin himself, a retired soldier. Further digging revealed that the mysterious late-night phone calls Ivanka had overheard were between Sergiu and Desislava, plotting their crimes. On January 8, 2021, in front of witnesses and family members, the judge delivered the final verdict. Sergiu and Desislava were both sentenced to 2 life terms each for premeditated murder and first-degree felony charges for the deaths of 4 people: Nicola, Ivanka, Kostin, and Georgita. The sentence ensured that neither would ever leave prison, marking the end of a twisted and tragic tale of greed, manipulation, and betrayal. What lessons can we learn from this story? You can comment below.